And Mort, we've been hearing Bucks, Bucks, Bucks with the Jets just behind, and in the end, it's the Jets. So what happened?
Well, what happened is that as Brett Favre started to really evaluate and analyze the two teams that were interested in him, the Jets and the Bucks. You know, the Bucks were the natural, logical choice because, yeah, he had a relationship with John Gruden going back to Green Bay. You know, it's got some West Coast offense derivatives, so to speak, that he was familiar with. It's a short flight from Mississippi to Tampa, Florida. But the more Brett looked at the Jets, it really was 50-50 going into this evening as he was convening and meeting with his family. And then, you know, about an hour ago or so, maybe hour and a half ago, the Jets called Bus Cook, Brett's agent, and said, "We think we're going to do this deal with the Packers." And at that point, Bus called Brett Favre, and Brett was, you know, kind of saying, "Listen, if we're going to do one now, as much as I like the Jets, you know, we probably should just go with the Buccaneers because it's a safe route because I know John Gruden." Well, 30 minutes after that, Brett Favre got the call. The Jets, pushed by Woody Johnson and general manager Mike Tannenbaum, pulled the trigger, made this trade, and in the past 20 or 30 minutes, Mike Tannenbaum, the general manager of the Jets, convinced Brett Favre this was the right thing to do, and my understanding is that Brett has signed off on this trade, and he is, yes, going to be a New York Jet.
Mort, it seems so secondary when you're talking about Brett Favre, but what's the word on terms headed back from New York to Green Bay?
Well, the terms are, according to a Jet source, is that it's a fourth-round pick that is a conditional pick that can go all the way to a first-rounder if the Jets win the Super Bowl. You know, more likely is going to end up being a third-rounder and possibly a second-rounder. You know, the one thing the Jets did, they had we forget they won 10 games 2 years ago, had a very aggressive offseason acquiring talent. They feel, even before Brett Favre, that they were going to be a playoff contender, and now with Favre, they certainly, you know, they feel good about that. Now, for Brett, this is a transition, new playbook. But all those mundane things that were boring Brett, the meetings after meetings, well, now he's got to pay attention to meetings, and it can re-energize him because it is a new offense.
Brett has been on the record as admitting himself that he's got to get into a camp. It was somebody's camp, and now it'll be the Jets' camp. So how soon before Favre is a real factor for the Jets?
Well, the Jets internally had kind of had a discussion among themselves here for a couple of weeks, and since Bill Callahan is their new offensive line coach, well, he certainly knows the West Coast offense going back to his days with John Gruden in Green Bay and ran that offense when he was in Nebraska. And Brian Schottenheimer the offensive coordinator, has some West Coast roots. They felt like if they had the deal done by them, all they need would be a month to get Brett up to about 50 to 60% of the playbook. And sometimes people can make this more complicated than it has to be, and you play to Brett's strength. And certainly there will be some, you know, there's going to be a transition there, but you know they've added a lot of talent. And I might add, the irony of this thing is Brett Favre in 1991, coming out of Southern Mississippi, was the highest-rated player on the New York Jets draft board. I think some people know this story. But they didn't have a number one draft pick because they had used it in the supplemental draft. And so they targeted him in the second round, only the Atlanta Falcons, picking one slot ahead of him, took Brett Favre, and the Jets took Brownie Nagel. And Ron Wolf was the general manager, was the personnel director for the Jets then, and that's how he traded for Brett Favre in Green Bay. So if Ron Wolf had his way back in 1991, he always would have been a Jet.